Thank you very much, Santo. I would like to say that education is absolutely nothing should engender continuation of the girl child education. And also, we should understand that school should be a fun place, and every child should look forward to, being in school. But unfortunately, it is fast becoming a torture ground, very insecure, like you rightly said, especially for the girl child. Now, what are we looking at when you talk about insecurity in our schools for the girls? Affiliate teachers
Hmm.
who will go after little girls. You understand? And they continue to do this, and the state is not commensurate with the spate of punishment that we get to hear about. Also, we're looking around the lecturers. We're looking at older girls in the university. You have issues of lecturers, sex for good, and everything. And this hasn't stopped because they are devising other means to abuse these girls. And also, you rightly mentioned the kidnap or the abduction of
Yes.
students. I mean, look at Chibok girls. We still have some of them. They're already women. They're in captivity. Yes, but some other ones are still left behind. And this now is still traumatic for the Chibok town. So tell me, which mother would encourage her daughter to go to school?
Hmm.
Because there is no safety for her daughter in the school. The same thing with this little girl is still left there. She's yet to be rescued. And so on and so on and so on and so on. If you look, like you said that in comparison to 74% of male. So you see, every time we have a very much higher number of the male child in school than the female child. So you see, what do you expect in a country where it's like everything is working against the girl child? You give birth to a girl, some persons will come with a culture or a tradition that they must mutilate her vagina.
And that's why it starts.
She grows up to school age, she goes to school, she gets to be harassed by some teachers, some pedophiliac teachers. She comes home, the community is not treating her well because a lot is being demanded of her. So you see, this is a lot. It's huge on the girl child. So when you put all of these things together, it's like, should I even go to school? Because if school where I should go and learn and become a better person is fast becoming a torture ground, then it is becoming scary. Take, for example, the northern part of Nigeria. It got to a point that some governors were actually trying to, incentivize parents so that they would allow their girl child to come to school. Now, you are now left to choose between the promises on the part of the government that you're not very sure they can bring to pass, or allowing the child to go to school on a 50-50 basis that she may come back, she may not come back. Look at what happened to this little girl, Anifa.
Terrible situation.
Anifa, a 5-year-old girl. Now I'm going to spread the blame. I'm going to sprinkle it over everybody.
Okay.
Now, this girl was 5. I remember my youngest child when she was 5. I mean, I couldn't allow her go to some places alone, let alone going to school and returning back home. I read somewhere that the kidnapper used was someone was sent to pick them up, bicycle, and this man drove her away, and that was how she got into the hands of this school proprietor, who eventually dismembered her, and the story is all out there. So you see, even within the school, you're not safe as a girl child, as a child. So my advice, there was a move on the part of the governor of Kano State that every private school should be closed down. And I've said it before and I'm saying it again, that is totally a very wrong move. Because you cannot say for a fact that every private school is a dangerous zone for every child or every girl child. What should they have done? Who are the people given certification to these schools? Because apart from proprietor like that man who eventually killed Hanifa, there are other things happening in schools. Sometimes you have bullying these girls. I remember a parent, I had to calm her down and advise her to take legal action rather than taking laws into her hands. Her girl is a bit on the big side, and this particular teacher was always taunting this girl with her size, to the point that this girl said she wasn't going to school again. The school was no longer safe for her. So you see, there are so many things we are doing that girl child from going to school, because government should pull intelligence together. The private school, this could have happened in a public school. Would the government have closed down every public school? So we need to sit down and look at issues one after the other, on the part of the parents, on the part of the school, the community, and the government as a whole.
So, Ibn Abba, you spoke about... Thank you very much for that, by the way. Thank you so much. The story about Hanifa was one that, when I read it, it was definitely just disheartening and very disturbing, as a matter of fact, because of her age. A lot of the time, we hear about situations like this, sometimes with older girls, and then you feel like, oh, there was so much that could have been done, but wasn't done. But Hanifa was 5. So in that kind of situation, that tells you where was something supposed to have been done, that mistake was made and led to this incident. So thank you very much for bringing it. Now, the situation with safety of girls in schools is not one that's coming up today. I mean, on the South here, we probably hear less of those situations than we do in the North. Now, the Northern situation is one that is very pronounced, and that is as a result of the added insecurity that is stemming from that environment, or that is popularized in that environment. Now, the subject of safety of girls, you said that the Kano governor closed down all the schools, all the private schools. And now that leads me to, if he closes down all the schools, who is that one move towards accountability, or is that one move towards prevention? Because if it's a move towards accountability, who exactly are we blaming? Who exactly are we holding accountable for the safety of these young girls when they go to schools? So that's the question I want to ask you. Who are we holding accountable for the safety of these girls in schools? And how should they be held accountable in practical scenarios?
Thank you, Santo. You see, the first people a child gets to know are the family members. So, essentially, the family should provide security for the girl. So, for me, a 5-year-old shouldn't go to school all by herself and return home all by herself. There should have been a provision for who is going to take her to school and who is returning her back
yes.
to school. If there is no provision for school bus, then the parents should have made alternative provisions to bring her home safely. She was 5. And of course, I see a lot of 5-year-olds on the streets. You see them in their own uniforms, wandering about. And you tell yourself, you see, when you will see that they are so vulnerable that what happened to Hanifa could happen to them. Do we wait until it happens before we begin to act? And secondly, as a governor, what I thought one of the things I would do would be to make sure that my commissioner for education does something about this. What am I saying? Now, a security loophole has been exposed. Going home all by herself, and somebody picked her under the pretense of taking her home and then took her to where she met with her death. So if you are going to have, if you're going to be a school owner, and of course, even if you have school buses, it's not every parent that will subscribe to, taking school buses. So we are going to sit down and talk about these things. For safety, in this time, we have to do things, just like during COVID, some things are normal. So we have to begin to look at these issues on ground. If you don't have a school bus in your school, you have to have a proper discussion with the parents. How do you take your children home from my school? Because if, as a proprietor, you're not the one, this child gets into the hands of some kidnappers, the distance of the school and the home, how safe is it? If a child's school...
Ibn Abba, are you there? All right. This conversation has only just begun, and we can hear how much needs to be done already. This points to the rot that has already occurred or that has already happened as a result of insecurity, abductions, rapes, and killings that are going on with young girls in schools. Now, this makes us want to do better, particularly in security, particularly in reference to the security of our girls. These children are not just the future of tomorrow, but the future of today. So if we do not cater for them and we do not ensure that they are secure wherever they are, the schools, their homes, churches, even playgrounds, how then can we secure our future? Hanifa's story was one that was very disturbing when I read about it. And that's because, as I said, not only was she 5, she was literally just walking back home from school. So somebody's just going back home from school, and that was it. That was just it. She met her doom, and the whole thing happened. She was dismembered, and that entire situation just became gory from then out. So it tells you that there's so much work that needs to be done when it comes to ensuring the safety of our girls. So I'm speaking to Ibn Abba Dixon, Executive Director of Liaison Concept Limited, and she's discussing with me today on how to secure our girls and who to hold accountable. We're discussing today accountability, the safety of girls in schools, today on the Woman Agenda. Ibn Abba, you're still there?
Yes,
thank you very much. Now, let me bring you were saying something earlier, but let me just interject for a little bit. Now, the subject of the Commissioner of Education, you started that thought, but you didn't get to finish it. Can you talk to me about what you wanted to say when you mentioned the role that the Commissioner of Education has to play?
Yes. For me, closing down all private schools does not solve any problem. As a commissioner, I want to understand the measure or the level of security you have put in place for the pupils in your school. For example, even if you have school buses, it's not every parent that wants to subscribe to school buses. So then you're going to, as a proprietor, you have to explain to the commission your pupils go home by. So if a child is not going home by school bus, then how does she go home? Because you see, in this time, we have an unprecedented heightened level of insecurity. So we should be thinking outside the box. I should bother about my pupils. I'm an educationist, so I know what that means.
But Ibn Abba, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
There are so many schools in Lagos State, let alone Ogun State, let alone in the north, because, the north, they're encouraging education. So schools may be significantly less than here in the south, but there are quite a number of schools. So within our locality here, how does the Commissioner of Education begin to make this clear and apply it to schools within that number? We have so many schools in Lagos State. So how does this measure begin to be applied in these schools?
Thank you, Sonko. You see, I mentioned earlier on, from the governor to the commissioner. The commissioner has other subordinates working in the same ministry, up, down to ward level. So it is not a burden the commissioner carries alone. The commissioner to be working with local governments, with the council, with ward councillors, because these are critical times. There are so many unreported cases. You don't know how many people are paying ransom quietly. So they are afraid, they have been warned, they have been threatened. We can't play deaf or blind to the reality we haven't found. So what am I saying? This is a new era. We need to talk as a commissioner. You delegate people to discuss with school owners, even the public schools, because these children, no matter how many they are coming from various homes. So there is need for discussion. I mean, if we have older girls, fine. But when you talk about the age of Anifa was a little girl. She was 5. So if they live in a community and there is no school bus, how about encouraging groups? They work in groups. Then again, we cannot exempt the community member. Sometimes, you drive around, you see some trained kids, and we all shrug our shoulders and go our ways. We should begin to pay more attention as community members. Okay, I see this girl. She's just going up and down aimlessly. Where are your parents? We should ask questions, and we should engage other adults to get involved. So that in our own little ways, we are beginning to become security conscious. And of course, the schools should be made to subsume security consciousness and the training into their school curriculum. I was at a seminar for the girl child, and part of the things that I saw there was that they taught girls how to, in their own little way, defend themselves.
So that's what you mean when you say security should be included in the curriculum, or at least that's one of the measures.
Everything. While you physically defend yourself, they must teach a child how to sense trouble on the road. Somebody just came to you guys and picked you up and wanted to just take it. Maybe he was doing it out of his own, like you guys would say,
the goodness of his heart. No, judgment.
You understand? But because I cannot read your mind. So I have to protect myself. So we need to teach little children how to sense trouble when they are on the road. So that when somebody comes and says, okay, I want to do this, say, no. By the time you say you are saying money, by the time you say, somebody else will see you and question you that, why are you disturbing this child? We cannot afford to keep to ourselves anymore. We need to be our brother's keepers, because these people are all over the place. Because it is like privilege in the north, because they abduct them, in large numbers and everything. Things are happening everywhere.
That's true.
Insecurity is happening in every nook and cranny of Nigeria. Nowhere is secure. Even the villages are not secure.
Thank you very much, Ibinabo.
Yes, thank you.
This is 26 minutes past the hour of 2 on your Women Radio, WFM 91.7. Today we're discussing accountability, the safety of our girls in schools. This is the Woman Agenda, and you can join the conversation by calling the number 07000 917 917. 917 917. You can also send in a text or a WhatsApp message on to 0703 175 6537. So, even about this subject of domestic violence, and that's even just one of them, but particularly we're talking about in schools now. The Darwin College incident was one that I think brought everything that goes on in schools, particularly when it comes to young pupils or students, to the limelight. And this particularly was one that elicited a lot of outcry from early. So bringing it down to girls now in schools as a whole, how can the government ensure that checks and balances are kept or are implemented in these schools regarding these children's safety?
Thank you, so much. You see, we have our rule book as a nation. literally know that it will kill, you are going to be killed, whether directly or indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
So the rules, the laws are there. But you see, the problem is implementation. Where there is no deterrence, criminal activities would thrive. Take, for example, in schools. Something happens, and because somebody involved is influential, you will choose to distort things so that you don't get the bottom of it. Or you choose to settle outside of the court. I mean, bring up juicy, offers to those who are offended, so that they can just keep quiet and go their way. So as long as we do not have very strong deterrence in place, I can't foresee any major change. Because when you know that if there is anything about you and there is any proof that you have done wrong with a girl, even with any child at all, you already imagine the punishment. That in itself will give you a nudge not to do it. Now, you see, kidnapping is becoming like a lucrative business.
I was coming to that because the subject of poverty is one that I needed to ask if you think it's at the bane, if you think it's at the foundation of all of these acts. Do you think poverty is at the foundation of all these acts, kidnapping, abductions, rape, ritualism? Do you think poverty is at the bane of all these negative, disturbing acts?
You see, one thing we must understand is poverty, apart from the literal meaning of poverty is a thing of the mind. And then we live in the era where life is fast losing its value and meaning. So government should come to the realization that the nation's destiny is being put under threat. Yes, to an extent, poverty could lead to a lot of things. But you see, the truth of the matter is when you come into a particular situation that is so demanding, is so tasking, the real person you come to. If everybody who has been struck with this poverty should go out there and begin to engage in criminal activities, I don't think we'll be here discussing this. The whole nation will be shut down. But because as a responsible citizen of a nation, when you have issues, you look for other means that within the ambit of the law. How do you explain, for a group of persons who went about kidnapping and collecting ransom, and they keep collecting, and they don't stop collecting, and they will blame it on poverty.
Some of them actually even killed these people at the end of the day, even after collecting the ransom.
Do you understand? I saw a story from Rivers State. The chairman of a particular local government in Ahoda, they from a tip-off got to know that a particular abandoned general hospital became a den for criminals, and by the time they ransacked the whole place, they found over 30 decaying bodies, and most likely, from their assumption, I don't know whether they have certified that those people were victims of kidnapping. So, because you are poor and you need money, so you will kidnap somebody and will pay you and kill the person. See, it is a matter of wickedness linked to poverty. That poverty is not only financial; it is your mental reasoning. It is You turning life, making life lose its value and meaning where you're concerned. Some of these people, where they are concerned, life has no meaning. Otherwise, how do you explain a case where a young boy wanted to sacrifice his mother for money? I mean, it's in the video footage is all out there.
It's out there, yes.
So you see, the better pursuit of wealth is a thing. And I will not take away the blame from our politicians and some of our community members